All right, fire it up. Let's do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
That's fine. Take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Rowdy there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark, and we are finally headed to the final super speedway of the 2022 season. I always love these tracks, but sometimes it's a little nerve-wracking watching them. I couldn't imagine being actually behind the wheel of one of these things at one of these tracks, because it, especially lately, with drivers getting injured, that these guys might be checking to make sure their insurance is up to date. But either way, speaking of injuries and lots of issues and troubles, let's take a look back at Texas, where, hey, look at there. Tyler Reddick ends up getting his third victory and his first victory on a oval track instead of a road course. But there were lots of issues, and I'm sure if you've listened to either Door Bumper Clear or Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s download, yeah, you've heard all about it, and all the controversy on Twitter and everything else about this next-gen car. Yeah, NASCAR says they're working on it, and I understand they can't make the changes right now. The injuries, even though that they are somewhat severe with concussions, that's nothing to play around with. The car, for the most part, is still fairly safe. And it seems actually the harder these cars hit, the injuries, or it doesn't seem to be as jarring for the driver. It seems to be these kind of mild to medium hits, especially towards the rear end of the car, that's causing the biggest issues. But the ability for the tire to not blow out under loads and corners seems to be an issue. So I don't think we're going to see that today. This is a fairly wide, sweeping type course, super speedway. High speeds, but the loads on the tires are not as great unless you start to spin. But if you're starting to spin, you got other issues other than dealing with the tire exploding. So I don't think we'll see any real tire issues today. We haven't seen really any tire issues unless they get caught up in some debris or something like that. But let's take a look back at Texas. It was an attrition race. If you could survive, you ended up having a decent day. And Tyler Reddick was able to survive there at the end and end up with that top spot and getting the most points in Draftkings at 82.6. That's 70 laps, so not quite up to the 30% that I like to see for a dominator status, but probably the closest we had of a dominator for this race. We had lots of guys lead laps, and then while they were leading, end up blowing out tires. William Byron had issues early, but was able to recover for a 7th place finish. Ryan Blaney, same thing, was able to recover into a 4th place finish. And then you got Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski down, not in the optimal lineup, but probably enough points that if you had them in your lineup, you were doing fairly well. But we had 4 place differentials, 2 values, and 4 guys that finished in the top 5, and we had $700 left on the optimal lineup. And our optimal lineup challenge after 30 races, Eric Jones now begins to pull away. He's got 2 races on the next closest 2 competitors, Ross Chastain and Chase Elliott. Today we'll probably throw a couple of new or guys towards the bottom of the pack, giving them maybe some optimal lineups. Yeah, I mean, Daytona, we literally picked, you could pick the 6 cheapest guys, and you would have cashed and played. Dega is going to show some semblance of that, but, I mean, yesterday, if you watched the Xfinity race, there was no big one. There was no real major wreck. We had a couple guys have some spins, but no huge collection of cars. I'm sure the Xfinity owners were probably happy with that case, but AJ Allmendinger ended up getting his first super speedway win. You know, it's such a crapshoot, but that's the first super speedway without a so-called big one where you collect, 5, 6, 20 cars in a wreck. So kind of the guys that started up front kind of finished up front, which was a little unusual. I hadn't seen that in probably 6 or 7 years or 8 years. So, I mean, will we see that today? I don't think so. This car's a little less stable than the Xfinity car. We're going to have a lot of guys that are really, really in kind of some precarious situations that need points. So I think the end of stages are going to see some wild craziness with 12 guys trying to make sure that they get some stage points. But we're also going to see these guys that are not inside the chase probably back down a little bit and maybe even form a group behind these leaders to possibly stay out of some of this carnage. There's going to be a lot of chess maneuvering during this entire race. But either way, that's kind of what happened at Texas. Now, let's look forward to what we're going to see potentially today at Talladega for the YellaWood pressure-treated Pine 500 here at Talladega. Oops, this is Daytona. I forgot to switch this. But all these stats are for Talladega. I'm not going to fix it because I'm live right now. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and hit me up in the chat. Who do you think potentially is going to be really, really good for DraftKings or really good for betting? Or who do you think just ends up taking one of the top 3 spots? But this race length is 188 laps. Dominator points will not be something we will be concerned about, but they are out there at 131.6 total points. We'll just have so many guys that across the field that have fast laps. I don't think we'll see any one particular driver have more than probably 7 fast laps. And I don't think we'll probably see, lots of different guys will lead a lap. They'll take turns, almost kind of putting themselves out front and kind of seeing how it goes. One of these times going to these super speedways, we're going to see a race like we saw in the Xfinity race yesterday, where we don't see massive amounts of carnage. Stats are still on our side to say that we're going to see carnage. So dominator points are not going to be something we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at pretty much strictly finishing position and place differential. All right. Our comparison tracks, of course, would be Atlanta, Daytona, and Talladega. So all 3 of those run fairly similar. They have high attrition, high place differential, not much of a dominator type of race. So those are the 3 tracks, and all of them are run kind of like super speedways, restrictor plates as they used to be called. All right, we'll kind of go through this a little bit in summary, and this will be detailed and the rest of them will be summaries. Denny Hamlin, 10,800. He is starting 3rd. We had no practice because pretty much nobody really was doing practice, so they pretty much have opted out of doing practices for these super speedway races. And they pretty much just unload and qualify. They've got enough data on this car now. They know pretty much what they need to unload with. So no practice, just qualifying. In our next line here, in white to the left here, is the 5 last races at Talladega, as kind of a comparison of what's happened recently at the track. But Denny Hamlin does have 1 win in the last 5 races. He's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, and 4 top 20s for those 5 races, with a 27.4 DraftKings average and a 12.4 average finish. So not bad. But Denny Hamlin is a really good plate racer. Multiple victories at Daytona and 2 wins here at Talladega. This is for our spring race, which was the last race here, points paying race here at Talladega, where Denny Hamlin finished 18th in that race. He's raced at Talladega a total of 33 times with 2 wins, 9 top 5s, 14 top 10s, and 19 top 20s. Because of his starting spot, he does not offer any PD upside, and if he has any issues, there's a ton of PD downside. So pretty much anybody starting in the top 10, I'm not hunting after or putting much into my lineups. I do have a Joe Gibbs Racing lineup, so team play does have a factor here. Teams will match up with each other and kind of stay with each other, good and bad. You're more dependent, or you can trust your teammate sometimes a little bit more than potentially others, and manufacturers kind of stick together. Problem with that is if one of those end up having a problem, or there's a problem right in front of the team, then the whole team is taken out. So there's good and bad. If you're out there racing, you still kind of stick to your teammates at least until the last few laps, and then it's kind of every man for himself. But the Toyotas are all going to stick together, the Fords are all going to stick together, the Chevys are all going to stick together. So that's where Denny Hamlin ends up falling into a couple of lineups for me. I'm running 40 different lineups. So he is in 1 or 2 of those, and those are probably mostly Toyota or Joe Gibbs Racing type lineups. 22nd on the power ranking, mostly because of his starting spot. He is one of the drivers that runs super speedways really well and just understands how to avoid catastrophe. So, there is some opportunity for taking Denny Hamlin here. But things are typically, you're starting in the top 10, you don't necessarily do very well when it comes to DraftKings. I mean, Denny Hamlin can start 3rd, finish 7th, which is probably would be fine at most tracks, but here at Talladega, because some of these guys in the back, if there is a lot of attrition, just end up getting so many PD points or place differential points that they'll jump over Denny Hamlin. All right, next in line here, Kyle Larson, 10,600, starting 2nd. In the last 3 races, which he did not race at Talladega in 2020 because of his suspension, he only has 1 top 5. And he's got a negative 0.7 DraftKings average. Kyle Larson has the worst luck when it comes to super speedways. He was able to finish 4th in this race in the spring, but you could tell how poorly his outings have gone in the past if you've got a negative 0.7 DraftKings average and a 27th place average finish out of 3 races. So, out of 15 total races, he's only finished in the top 27 times, which is less than 50%. So, with that being said, I've got, just like Denny Hamlin, I've got Kyle Larson in a couple of lineups, and most of those are either Chevy or Hemrick type lineups. He's 35th on the ranking system. So, I'll be staying mostly away from Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin. All right, Ryan Blaney, 10,400, starting 19th. Ryan Blaney is one of my top 5 picks to potentially win this race. It is a crapshoot, that to say the least, on who gets a win here. But Ryan Blaney does have a win in the last 5 races here. Got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, and 4 top 20s. A 37.6 DraftKings average and a 12.2 average finish. It's pretty good. It's still not the best. We do have one driver that we will get to that has a much better, and actually single-digit average finish. He finished 11th in this race in the spring. Starting 19th, Ryan Blaney has got some PD upside, and he runs really well here. He's got a total of 2 wins out of his 15 total starts, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 11 top 20s. 11, almost 75% of the time, Ryan Blaney finishes in the top 20. Well, he's starting almost 20th. So he should end up having a good DraftKings points day, and I think he could easily vie for a win, which then that would make the 21st different winner this year, which is absolutely crazy. He's third on my power ranking. I've got him in 25 to 30% of my lineups. Joey Logano, 10,200, starting 11th. First driver outside of the top 10, so I do have some ownership of Joey Logano, and he also, like Ryan Blaney, runs very well here at Talladega. He's got one top 5, one top 10, two top 20s in the last 5 starts, a 23.4 average finish, which isn't great, and part of that is partially due to his 32nd finish here in the spring, but his total finishes here at Talladega out of 27, he's got 3 wins, 9 top 5s, 15 top 20s. So more than half the time he finishes in the top 20, and about a third of the time he finishes in the top 10. So I've got some ownership of Joey Logano. I'm not super heavy on Joey today. Don't love his starting spot. I don't mind it, but don't love it. I prefer guys that are starting 15th or further back. Oh yeah, make sure you stick around towards the end of the video, or you can even fast forward to towards the end of the video, and I will be spinning the Wheel of Doom, the Super Speedway Wheel of Doom, where I will literally just spin the wheel. It will pick a random driver from 11th place to 36th place, and I'll put them in the lineup, hit submit, and we'll see how it does. I almost ended up cashing at Daytona with the Wheel of Doom, so it gets kind of interesting and fun. All right, and that just kind of tells you the randomness of these super speedways. Chase Elliott, $10,000, starting third. I mean, once again, we're starting in the top 5, and Chase Elliott's not. Hold on one sec. Yep. Chase Elliott starting 16th. So that is incorrect. So I'm not going to fix it. But Chase Elliott starting 16th. I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups, very similar to Joey Logano. We can fix that real quick. Bug me. If I go back and look later, I won't remember. All right. Chase Elliott, starting 16th, $10,000. He does not have a top 5 in the last 5 races here at Talladega. He does have a 21.8 average finish, starting 16th. He finished 7th here in the spring race. He did win the Atlanta race, which was kind of a super speedway-ish type race. So if he can avoid the carnage and get himself up front or get further back, but I think Chase Elliott has got to go search for points. He, I think, is only a few points to the good on the playoff chase. So he's going to have to hunt and be one of those guys that races pretty aggressively for stage points. So expect that from Chase Elliott today, which could put him into a little bit of danger. But starting 15th or further back, I do like the place differential upside for Chase Elliott. So I do have some ownership of him. All right, next in line here, Kyle Busch. Man, this guy has had the worst luck in the last, I don't know, 10 weeks. Other than the fact, I mean, actually, pretty much all year. I mean, his only win came from Bristol dirt race where he got kind of lucky to get the win when Tyler Reddick and Chase Briscoe ended up wrecking on the last lap. So Kyle Busch really does not have yet kind of given that win, but either way, Kyle Busch is probably hoping for some good luck at a track that sometimes it's a little difficult to find. Starting 26th, though, that's a decent amount of PD upside. He does have a 21.4 average finish. He finished third in this race in the spring, so that's some good potential news for Kyle Busch. Because of his starting spot, I've got a decent amount of ownership, 25 to 30%. I think he will be probably fairly heavily owned. 34 total starts. He does have 1 win, and out of those 34 starts, he's got half of them are in the top 20. So, a 50-50 shot to get himself in the top 20, 26. I think he's just looking to probably finish a race and not blow up. So, hopefully Kyle Busch can make it to the end and not either blow up or be part of the carnage today. Martin Truex Jr. also searching for that first win this year, and almost as I think maybe Martin Truex Jr. has had even worse luck than Kyle Busch this year. Martin Truex Jr. has never won a race at Talladega or Daytona, so he does not have a super speedway win at all. But he's got an 18.8 finish. I mean, not quite half the time does he finish in the top 20. Finished 5th here in the spring, starting 22nd. There's some PD upside potential here with Martin, and if he can get attached to the Toyotas and make it to the end, Martin Truex Jr. could end up with a decent day. He's not one of my picks for the win, but if kind of like Ryan Blaney, if Martin Truex Jr. can win a race, that would be our 21st winner of the year. Ninth on the power ranking system, and 20 to 25% ownership of Martin. William Byron here, 9,500, starting 9th. Almost at that 10th or better spot for me to kind of lean into a driver. So, I mean, I do have, I think I've got him in 3 lineups. So not an absolute fade. I just don't like anybody in the top 10. Stats are that just does not end up. Four top 20s, a 13.6 average finish. That's not bad. He finished 15th here in the spring race. His lifetime stats here are about the same out of 9 total races. So over half the time he ends up finishing in the top 20. All right, next in line here, Christopher Bell, our pole sitter. And if I remember correctly, he was the pole sitter in the spring race and finished 22nd. Hence why I definitely don't like the pole sitter at super speedways. I don't like him in the top 10, as I've repeated many times. $9,300 starting first. I think I've got him in one lineup along with the Toyota and Joe Gibbs guys. So with that being said, he got a 22.4 average finish at super speedways. He's only finished in the top 5 once out of his 5 total starts. There's too much risk for taking number 1 the pole sitter or anybody in the top 5. So I have him in one lineup, and I think that's a Joe Gibbs type lineup. Tyler Reddick, our winner from last week, Texas. Tyler Reddick, 9,100, starting 8th. Once again, we're in the top 10. Not a whole lot of interest. I've got him in a couple of Chevy type lineups. But starting 8th, I don't have a whole lot of interest, especially when you finish 39th in the spring race and you've got a 22.4 average finish and you've never finished in the top 5 before. So I'm going to fade off of Tyler Reddick for this week. You can take him if you want. Didn't fix that. Supposed to say. Bubba Wallace, 8,900, our winner from this exact race last year. In the fall, and he did win a rain-shortened super speedway, but he had a fast car all race long last year, and he's been really, really pretty good at most of the super speedways. He's getting collected towards the end of the race when he's kind of in the top 10. So I expect Bubba Wallace to continue that today. He is racing for an owner's points, so to get a win for Bubba Wallace here and locking in that number 45 car and the Joe Gibbs racing into the final 8 would be a big deal. So Bubba Wallace starting 27th, a ton of PD upside potential here. I do have him as one of my top 5 to potentially win this race. Like I said, he's got 1 win here. He's got 6 out of the 9 total starts are at top 20. All things point to being Bubba Wallace is going to be number 1, heavily owned. But also be somebody to potentially win this race. So I've got 40 to 45%. He's one of my highest owned drivers. So kind of if you need to fade him out. If you want to keep him, keep him. It's a coin flip. It's one of those, if he runs super well and you have him, you're going to be right there with everyone else. And if you don't have him and he runs well, you're pretty much not going to do well. Or if you don't have him and he does lousy, maybe you look like a really smart person. I don't know. Starting 27th, I do like Bubba Wallace. Ross Chastain, our winner from the spring race here at Talladega. $8,700 starting 6th. I've got him in, I think, 1 or 2 lineups. I think it's more like 1. I mean, he did win this race in the spring. We haven't seen repeat winners at Talladega in a long time. So lots of things are pointing away from taking Ross Chastain, excluding his 6th starting spot. And out of his 7 total starts, he's only got not even half of those are in the top 20. So I'm pretty much a complete fade off of Ross Chastain, other than I think one Trackhouse type of lineup. Alex Bowman, man, what crappy luck for Alex Bowman. He's going to have to go and hopefully feel better, number 1. And number 2, if he does feel better and can race the road course, Alex Bowman is out with a concussion protocol. He will not race today. Do not put him in your lineups. Do not take him. Noah Gragson is filling his spot. And I think it was Justin Allgaier is taking his spot in the 62. But either way, Alex Bowman is out, concussion from last week at Texas. So do not put Alex Bowman in your lineups. Won't discuss him or about him for today's race. So get well before the race at the Roval, Alex, and that sucks. Eric Jones, 8,300, starting 12th. So he's starting outside the top 10, pretty close to the top 10 though. But Eric Jones has the best average finish of a 9.8, and that is the top of the class from everybody running today. He finished 6th here in the spring race. He's got a 46.8 DraftKings average. 4 top 20s, 4 top 10s in the last 5 races. He doesn't have a win here, but Eric Jones just seems to understand, number 1, restrictor plate racing or super speedway racing. But he also seems to just finish well. So, I mean, I don't have him in a ton of lineups. I've got him in 15 to 20%. So, I mean, it is a little risky starting 12th. Now, if we don't have any attrition in this race, then, maybe, I don't know. I got him in some lineups, not heavily on Eric Jones, but he does have the best average finish and the best DraftKings average of the field today. All right, Kevin Harvick starting 24th at 8,100. He's got 1 win out of his 43 total starts here, but 30 times, what is that, over 2/3, almost 75% of the time he finishes in the top 20, starting 24th. I like his odds to end up getting at least inside the top 10. I mean, he's got a 10.4 average finish over the last 5 starts. 5 of the last 5 races here at Dega, he has finished in the top 20. He finished 10th here in the spring, so I'm pretty heavy on Kevin Harvick and expect him to probably be fairly heavily owned. Austin Cindric, our Daytona 500 winner and a winner from a super speedway from here, 7,900. He is hunting for a really good finish or potentially a win to lock himself into the round of 8. Starting 17th, he's got some potential PD upside here. He finished 23rd here in the spring race. I don't know why he's a 21st place average finish. I didn't calculate something right there. But Austin Cindric, either way, has got some PD upside potential. He does typically fairly well at super speedways. He understands the draft and understands his car and how to get it to the end of the road. So I've got him in 25 to 30% of my lineups. I think he could vie for a top 5. I think between him, Joe Logano, and Ryan Blaney, they could be a force to reckon with if they line up together. Another person in that group would be Harrison Burton, coming from the Wood Brothers team, who has a partnership alliance with Penske. So expect the Penskes to be fast today. Expect them to line up with each other when they can find each other. Daniel Suarez, 7,700, starting 14th. Okay, so you're kind of sitting there in a decent spot. Boy, I did this too late last night. Got all sorts of mistakes, but I don't know what this 7.2 is. I think that was from last week. But he's got a 27.8 average finish here at Talladega over the last 5 races. He does not have a top 20. Starting 14th, that is no bueno. Finished 21st here in the spring. His 11 total starts here. He does have 1 top 10. Don't love the starting spot for Daniel Suarez here, but it's kind of a crapshoot. I do have him in a few lineups, just not a ton. Chris Buescher here, 7,600, starting 8th. Why do I have him in 25% lineups? That's right. Let's my lineups here. Yeah, I've got him in 8 lineups. A little heavy, in my opinion, for somebody starting in the top 10. Maybe I'm thinking he's going to have some good luck coming out of his off his win from last week. That, and I also think he could easily tie up with or team up with Brad Keselowski, who is one of my picks to win this race. 7,600. He's also not in the playoff chase, so I expect him to kind of hang towards the middle or the rear of the field towards the end of this race and then make a charge. I don't think he's going to get himself tied up in the middle of the stage breaks and trying to get points there. Danny came in 7th on my power ranking grid. So I've got him at 25%, maybe a little on the heavy side. But his teammate Brad Keselowski, one of my highest owned drivers, 7,400, starting 18th. Brad has got the most wins here at this track at 6. 17 times he's finished in the top 20 out of his 27 total starts. 12.6 average finish over the last 5. He does have a win in the last 5 races. So I like his starting spot. I think Brad Keselowski understands this race. Now, if he can just not be super aggressive and get himself to the end of this race, then I think Brad stands a lot of potential. Next in line here, Austin Dillon, 7,200, starting 20th. Decent starting spot. Austin Dillon won at Daytona Super Speedway earlier. 14.4 average finish. It's not bad. He finished 2nd here in the spring race. Yeah, I probably need to look at maybe swapping out some Chris Buescher for Austin Dillon, because I've only got Austin Dillon in 5 to 10% of my lineups. So those two will probably change. I haven't submitted the lineups yet, but I think I may end up swapping these two because we're not worried about salary caps here. Most of my lineups have about $4,000 to $5,000 left. So you're not really too worried about salary cap. So I probably, just to be transparent, I will be probably making a few swaps here with Austin Dillon and Chris. 18 total starts and 12 of them, so 75% of the time he finishes in the top 20. 4 out of the last 5 he's finished in the top 20 with a 14.4 average finish. So yeah, I like probably taking a lot more of Austin Dillon. Chase Briscoe, 7,100, starting 5th. Don't like your starting spot. I don't like your average finishes. You only finished 2 out of your 3 races in the top 20. So I mean, that's not awful, but yeah, starting 5th. No interest. I think I've got him in one lineup with the Stewart-Haas grouping, but other than that, I have faded off of Chase Briscoe. Eric Almirola, 6,900. Almirola starting higher than that. Yeah, he's starting 4th. Yeah, I messed that up. Let me fix that real quick. All right. Go back to you. Sorry about that, guys. And ladies, if ladies are listening. All right. Eric Almirola, starting 4th. That's why I don't have any ownership other than probably a grouping with Chase Briscoe. He's got an 18.8 finish, average finish in the last 5. He does have 1 win here out of his 25 total starts. But starting 4th, you don't really have anywhere to go but down for me. So I faded off of Eric Almirola. All right, next in line here, Cole Custer, 6,700, starting 28th. Okay, out of the Stewart-Haas camp, Cole Custer, I like a little bit more than these guys. Got him in 15 to 20% of my lineups. 21st place average finish, which isn't great, but if Cole Custer can just avoid the big one, he'll if all these guys finish top 10, Cole Custer's is going to beat them in points. And that's why I don't love these starting spots. Cole Custer gets 20 points just for PD upside. So it ends up probably being 40, 45 points. When we start to look at all these different lineups, I mean, that puts him real close to optimal lineup range. Michael McDowell, another super speedway, expert. We call it road course ringers. I don't know if we call Michael McDowell a super speedway ringer. I kind of consider Bubba Wallace kind of in that same grouping. But Michael McDowell, one Daytona, he's always seemed to run fairly well here. He's got a 16.4 average finish. He runs better at Daytona than he does Talladega, but he still runs really well here. He finished 8th in the spring. He's got 2 top 5s out of his 23 total starts. But he's in completely different equipment, and I've got him in 35 to 40% of my lineups, if that tells you anything. And I'm picking Michael McDowell to either number 1 win or at least be in the top 5. Next in line here, we've got Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 6,400, starting 25th. Stats are not great, but he's very aggressive, which sometimes gets Ricky into trouble. Which I've faded off of a little bit because of his aggressiveness, but still starting 25th. If he can get himself into a top 10, that's enough to have him in some lineups. So 15 to 20% of my lineups, I will have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He does have a win here at Talladega also. He's also going to win at Daytona. So if that kind of tells you anything, he's pretty good at super speedways. Ty Gibbs, starting 10th. One spot too good for me to take any of Ty Gibbs. Even if he was starting 11th. Ty Gibbs just is having he hadn't quite figured out how to do what he needs to do in Cup. That he's also probably overly concerned about doing better and more focused on Xfinity, kind of like Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson has been very verbal that he, is not going to put himself into situations that can end up causing him injury or harm to affect his Xfinity championship run. So Ty Gibbs probably is in the same boat, probably just not as vocal about it. I've got him in 5 to 10% of my lineups. I think most of those are Toyota or Joe Gibbs types of lineups. By the way, I think Ty Gibbs just qualified it too high. Justin Haley, who has got a Talladega win here in Xfinity, and he's got 3 or 4 wins at Daytona. Justin Haley understands how to run super speedways. He finished 12th here in the spring race. I've got him in 25 to 30% of my lineups. I think Justin Haley could potentially even look at stealing a top 5 or even getting a win here, depending on the attrition rate. I don't even think Justin Haley really needs much attrition. I think he's just that good at super speedways. So starting 21st, I expect him to be a PD upside play, most definitely. So I like Justin Haley today. Corey LaJoie, another one who always seems to understand how to work the draft and how to be there towards the end. Not so much in Talladega as Atlanta or Daytona, but he finished 14th here in the spring race. He's got a 20.4 average finish. He's starting 32nd. Tons of PD upside potential here for Corey LaJoie, and this is his type of track that he loves to run very well at. So 35 to 40% ownership on Corey LaJoie. He's also one of my top 5. I don't think Corey LaJoie potentially vies for a win, but he could. I mean, he was right there battling Chase Elliott at Atlanta at a super speedway-esque type race at Atlanta earlier this year. Landon Castle, who ended up pushing his teammate AJ Allmendinger to a win yesterday. So Landon Castle understands how to get around here. Also, he finished 19th here in the spring. Got a 21.5 average finish. Starting 33rd, I like some Landon Castle today at 20 ownership. It does have 1 top 5 and 6 top 20s out of 19 total starts. But expect Landon Castle to be somebody to be goodbye for. Noah Gragson, starting 7th. Oh, wow, Noah, you qualified really well in that 48. Well, like I just said, Noah Gragson is also probably looking at dropping back to the rear probably fairly quickly after the start. I mean, I guess he's got some teammates that they may be leaning on him to help push them, so he might be a little more aggressive to help them. But, I mean, Noah Gragson is definitely one that is, he does his own thing. Wouldn't say he's selfish, because he does play the teammate game fairly well, but these guys really aren't his teammates. He's kind of doing a favor and substituting in for Alex. This also be the best car that Noah Gragson's ever driven in Cup. Not that the 16 is not a bad car, the 62, but you've got some Hemrick, a lot of Hemrick engineers behind you getting in that car. So this will be the best car that Noah Gragson's potentially ever run. So he may want to see what it does. I don't really know what to do. I don't like the starting spot. That's just plain and simple. I've got him in, I think, one lineup with the other Hemrick drivers. But other than that, I don't have a lot of interest in Gragson. Mostly because of his starting spot. Daniel Hemrick in the number 16. Starting 13th with a negative 28 Draftkings average. Because he finished 36th in the spring race. He started 3 times here total. Just only once in the last 5. But he does have a top 5. But starting 13th, that's just too risky, in my opinion. When we've got other drivers around this price range that, I mean, Corey LaJoie is a prime example. Starting 32nd, you know, what is that, a couple $100 more? I said we're not worried about salary caps today, for the most part. I mean, I expect Daniel Hemrick to probably improve on his average finish. But starting 13th, I just don't particularly like it. Justin Allgaier coming in to fill in for Noah Gragson, who's filling in for Alex Bowman in the number 62 Beard 62 Chevy. Starting 31st. Yeah, I don't even know when the start was for Justin Allgaier that he had a 40th place finish. But 4 times he has started here, and he's never finished in the top 20. He's starting 31st, so I mean, if we have a lot of attrition, Justin Allgaier stays out of it. He potentially ends up getting some PD upside play. I've got him in 5 to 10% just because he's starting in the 30s, and he's a good little super speedway racer, at least in Xfinity. And not so much in Cup, but I do have some ownership just because of his starting spot. Ty Dillon started 30th at 5,300. He's got a 16th place average finish here. He finished 33rd here in the spring. He's got 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s. 9 total starts. He's got 8 of those are top 20s. Starting 30th. I mean, Ty Dillon's a solid play. I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. So, hit me up in the chat. Let me know, who do you like today? Who are my top 3 drivers for finishing today? I like Ryan Blaney, Michael McDowell, and Bubba Wallace. Those would be probably my top 3. There's some other guys that I think may vie for a top 5, which would be Brad Keselowski would be another one that I'd like today. I like Justin Haley also from the back today. Guys that are starting in the top 10 that I like today would be maybe a Denny Hamlin, maybe a Chase Elliott, and maybe a Ross Chastain who won here in the spring. Hopefully that helps. Thanks for joining in. Make sure you hit that like button. I always think I'm going to screw your name up because I just glance at it. Akamani. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Let me know if I did. Amani. Harrison Burton next in line here at 5,100, starting 15th. He's got a 27th place average finish out of his 2 starts here at Talladega. 34th was his finish in the spring. And you're starting 15th. You're starting too high up for me in DraftKings, Harrison. I think you could get locked up with your pseudo teammates from Penske and end up with a decent finish if you guys don't all get tied up with each other. But hey, thanks. Did you end up taking any of the guys from last week, and did you end up faring fairly well, because I think Joe Logano was one of my picks and he ended up finishing second. So, yeah, I definitely didn't see Tyler Reddick winning that one, but I think I had him finishing high. All right, we're getting down towards the end here. BJ McLeod, $5,000, starting 35th. BJ's never finished well here. He's finished well at Daytona. He's finished well at Atlanta. He's never really ever finished super well here. 27th place average, finished 26th here, and a little bit of an attrition race. So I don't like, out of all the guys starting towards the rear of the field, BJ McLeod's the one that I'm probably faded off of. And I've only got him in, I think, one maybe lineups. I like a Todd Gillen better. Why Todd Gillen fell in price below BJ McLeod is beyond me. He's racing the same equipment as Michael McDowell. This was an anomaly in my opinion. Even though we're not worried about pricing today at all. I mean, he's starting 34th. He's got he finished 27th here in the spring. That's not enough for me to say he's a must-have. But you know, if he can survive, he ends up having a really good finish. So I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. I just thought pricing was really strange, even though we're not really that concerned about pricing. Cody Ware starting 37th, 4,800. Cody Ware's kind of like BJ McLeod. He just doesn't ever seem to finish as well at Talladega as he does at Daytona or Atlanta. Cody Ware was in a scary wreck last week at Texas, hitting that pit wall as hard as he did. So I'm sure there might be a little bit of nerves that may be still kind of lingering there. So starting 37th, you can definitely have ownership because he's starting the left. He can go nowhere but up. But I don't know. I don't know about Cody Ware. He also has a tendency to wreck. So I've kind of not leaning super hard on BJ McLeod or Cody Ware towards the bottom. I do like the Todd Gillens. Don't like Harrison Burton because we're starting, but the JJ Yeley's not bad. The Ty Dillon, Allgaier, not Hemrick. Those guys are not bad. So to kind of go over this again, some of the guys that I am probably heaviest owned in are Bubba Wallace, Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, Michael McDowell. Place differential with my next set of guys would be Corey LaJoie, Kyle Busch, Chris Buescher. And then down here, Brad Kay, Chase Elliott, Eric Jones, Austin Cindric, all I think have potential. Maybe not as great of a PD upside play, but still some guys that I'm definitely looking at. And once again, we're not super worried or concerned about pricing, because as you can see, nobody in $10,000 range here for the spring race. Nobody started in the top 10. Nobody also started outside the top 30. So take that into mind. And that's kind of something we see a little bit here at Talladega. It seems to be the sweet spot between, just outside the top 10 to just under the outside the top 30. But it's all place different. It's all place differential and finishing position again. And now, spring race, we had $0 left, which was a little bit strange for a super speedway. The fall race from last year was rain shortened, but we had one guy, Anthony Alfredo, that started 30th, ended up in 10th. But most of these other guys, once again, no dominator in the way of laps led or fast laps. Like I said, this was a little bit of an anomaly because of the rain shortened race. But either way, everybody finished in the top 10. Everybody pretty much started outside the top 10. And nobody really started past 30th. Now here, the spring 21 race, we had one guy start outside the top 30. Anthony Alfredo, again, starting 30th, ended up making the lineup from the spring race last year. Kreisgala, 38th to 6th. But Michael McDowell is in there, Kevin Harvick, Brad Kay. Matty D, congrats to Matty D on winning the truck race yesterday. His first NASCAR win for Matty D. Okay. And then we come down here to the fall 20 race. And once again, nobody starting with inside the top 10. So that's 4 races in a row. Well, we had Brad Keselowski starting 7th. 4 races where one guy started inside the top 10. Now, other super speedways we can look at. I mean, this was the last Daytona race where that was just craziness. Atlanta, a little bit different. We had 2 guys starting in the top 10 and 2 guys starting in the top 10 here. But then we go to Daytona from the spring, 2 in the top 10, a bunch in the 30s. Daytona seems to be much more towards the rear, where Dega seems to be much more 11th through 29th. I think is more the sweet spot, where I think Daytona is much more 20th or worse. I mean, here's another example of Daytona: 25th, 34th, 17th, 39th, 12th, 27th. I mean, all of these lineups, as we can see, I mean, we're all back to the 2020. Nobody in the top 10, nobody in the top 10, nobody in the top 10, starting in the top 10. And nobody really being dominators. I mean, Ryan Blaney led 63 at Daytona in the spring of 20. Or that was the fall race in 20. And then the spring race, it was a Talladega spring race. And then Denny Hamlin. So, all right, let's play the Wheel of Doom and see who we put into our lineup. All right, so our first driver here will be, all right, stop on Brad. Oh, Austin Dillon. I'm okay with that, though. All right, we'll find Austin Dillon here. Let's put him in. All right, so we remove him from the lineup. And we'll spin again. Dun, 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 dun. Justin Allgaier. All right. Oops. I think I was supposed to remove Justin Allgaier. Well, if Justin Allgaier comes up again, we'll spin again. Do. All right. Wheel of Doom. Bubba or Ty? Bubba Wallace. I'm good with that. Bubba Wallace today. All right. Remove. Then again. Just gotta remember, we gotta take Justin Allgaier out if he comes. Daniel Hemrick. 16 car. Not bad. Don't love his starting spot, though. But it is the Wheel of Doom for a reason. Alright, 2 more spots here. Oh no. Cody Ware. Well, this might prove me wrong here. Not sure I love this lineup, but it's Talladega. Anything can happen. Alright, we are all over the board here. Joey Logano. Alright. Logano. We didn't. Yeah, we still have $8,000 left over. We've got plenty. Alright, well, that is the Wheel of Doom. Good luck to everyone today. I'm sure will be a wild ride, as it normally is at Talladega. Or it could end up being peaceful, like yesterday's Xfinity race. But either way, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Enjoy a beautiful day in Talladega. We are East Coast and still dealing with some rain showers from Ian. And I hope everyone that was in the path of Ian is doing well and starting to dry out. Man, Florida got hit hard. But either way, have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the race. And we will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight. Getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You are fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our show. Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal we got in here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away. Yeah, boy. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.